The topic for today is inverse functions. What that means, people, really it is the reverse of a function. So once again, if you would compare it to the car where we had the petrol and the operations happening in the engine, which causes movement, then it is the reverse thereof, meaning that the movement which is caused by the engine needs petrol. Okay, so it basically really is the reverse process. Okay, we abbreviate or write an inverse function with a power of -1. Okay, so if it says f to the power of -1 of x, then we say f inverse of x. Okay, f inverse of x. Now I want you to compare that to a coordinate. If we have a coordinate which is 1, 3, then remember the 1 represents the x coordinate and the 3 represents the y coordinate. The inverse thereof would be if we move the 3 to the x coordinate and the 1 to the y coordinate. So really, people, it is exactly the inverse, the reverse of it. Okay, let's look at an example. It gives you the f of x, which is 2x plus 7, and they say you must find the f inverse of x. So now, importantly, I suggest that you first exchange the f of x, which we learned was y, exchange that or substitute that. I should say substitute. So that we learned already is exactly the same. Okay, that is step 1, right? Then in step 2, you must now reverse the x and y, which means instead of y you write x, instead of x you write y. Okay, and then you take down your 2 plus 7. So in this step, people, which is really the important one, is you exchange the y and the x. All right, that is the most important part. And now we must just simply rewrite the formula. We want to express that in terms of y because we need to get the inverse of f of x. So again, we want to find y, meaning we must move over the 7, which becomes x minus 7. Then this is minus 7. Then at the same time, I'm going to do it in the same step. Move over the 2, which you do secondly. It's multiplied, which means it becomes divide by 2 on this side. So divide by 2 equals, we have taken the 2, we've got the y left over, and we have taken the 7. So the inverse function of f of x is x minus 7 over 2 equals y. All right, I want to go through the steps quickly. Number 1, you write the y in the place of your function, okay, which in this case is f of x. Then the second step, which is the important step, you exchange x and y. All right, exchange means at the place of x you write y, at the place of y you write x. Okay, and thereafter you must change the subject of the formula. You must make the subject of the formula must be y, okay? Or we say you're going to express y in terms of x. All right, transposing formulas, that is the step that you are doing here. Right, let's look at another example. They give you the g of x, which is the cube root of x minus 3. And they once again say you must find g inverse of x. Right, so let's go to step number 1. We are going to substitute gx with y, okay, which gives me the cube root of x minus 3. Then the important step is exchange x and y. So in the place of x, I'm going to write y minus 3, which is the cube root, right? And in the place of y, I'm going to write x equals. And then once again, we must now transpose the formula, or we must rearrange the formula. Okay, we want to make y the subject, which means firstly, I must get rid of the cube root. Remember, this basically is Goro's or use the opposite operation, which then becomes x cubed, right? Which on the right hand side gives me y minus 3. And I want to find y, so now I must still move the 3 to that side, which becomes plus. So x cubed plus 3 equals y. Or, for that matter, they're asking you the inverse of g of x. Okay, then the question goes further, and they say you must find the inverse of g, okay, of negative 5. Now remember, this is the place of the x, which means instead of the x, you're going to use negative 5. So let's use that one, g negative 1 of negative 5 equals. Now in the place of x, we will write negative 5, which is cubed, and then we must add 3. Okay, and that you will simply put into your calculator and calculate, and your answer will be negative 122. So let's repeat quickly. In this case, you must first find the inverse function, right, where we firstly replace the function with a y. Okay. Then the next step, very important, exchange the x and the y. So instead of x, you write y. Instead of y, you write x. You're really physically only going to replace the positions where these variables are. Right. Then you have to do Goro's or again, you have to rearrange the formula. Arrange the formula. And that we do by Goro's or, and then you find the inverse function of x. Thereafter, they asked to find the inverse of g with negative 5. Okay, which means now you use your new formula that you found. You found the g inverse of x, and in the state of x, you will now write negative 5, and you will calculate the value, and in this case, our answer is negative 122.